talking about future proofing. I think it's one of the topics that has become extremely important, yet neglected by some. We seem to have this ostrich syndrome where we put our heads in a hole when it comes to looking at the future, and we know that the future is holding challenges. We've seen what has happened with the pandemic. Something that we have not expected has happened, and we need to be able to prepare ourselves in some way. We cannot prepare ourselves fully for everything. That's impossible. But I believe that being prepared for the future starts with knowing who you are, first of all, and secondly, knowing what you are capable of. And put that into some form of strategy that will allow you to be ready for anything. And that's basically what future-proofing means. So I want to share my screen with you so that we can go through. I've got a bit of a, just to keep me in line, a bit of a PowerPoint presentation that I run through. There's a lot of information on there. I cannot deal with all the information in this session. So what we'll do is we'll go over into a second session. The second session I will allow for more practical stuff that we can, I will share some stuff, and then we can talk about these things, ask questions and do stuff. But as we go through the first one, I'm going to try and spend as little time as possible on every slide. There's 11 slides that I want to go through. If you will abide with me, I believe that you will find it very informative and probably edifying in many ways. Let me just switch on my share screen. Okay, there you go. Guys, being future-proof, I almost feel a bit like Noah this morning while I was praying about everything, as I do in the mornings. Noah came up and his plight, the many years that he was actually talking about the disaster that's coming and being prepared and building his boat, and nobody actually knew why he's building this thing, because it's far away from any water, so it cannot sail anywhere. And they didn't really know rain at that time. Rain wasn't what we know rain to be today. So they couldn't give a hoot, and he was talking about things that just didn't make any sense to them. And I think in many ways, my rantings about being future-proof is to many people just that. It's just ranting. It's just somebody talking about stuff that may or may not happen. But I sincerely believe that we are sitting in a time where the insecurity about our future, the uncertainty of our future, is causing many people to get distracted from who they are, because we are here mostly to live out what we've been created to be. And if we cannot live that out, then we miss the meaning in our lives, the purpose of everything. And then our life becomes meaningless. If we look at a lot of things that people has gone through over the past few months with this pandemic thing, many people will say that they believe that you can go through this thing with God. It's true. I got through the pandemic by faith. I believe that we need to walk by faith. But guys, we also need to be practical, because faith without works is also worth nothing. It will not work for you. So in the same sense, I was also reminded about the 10 maidens, the 5 wise and the 5 unwise. 5 of them prepared for the future, what nobody expected, because everybody came to the event that they went to knowing that they have enough oil for the event. But then something happened, and the event turned out not to be what everybody expected, and only 5 were prepared for that. And I believe we're sitting in the same time now. There's opportunities that lies waiting for us. But if we do not unlock those opportunities with wisdom and understanding and with the knowledge that we need to prepare ourselves with, then it's not going to happen for us. Then it will happen for all the other people, and we may lose out. So you'll see on the first screen that I've shared that there's a couple of questions that I'm asking, and I believe that these are the things. I shared it on the WhatsApp group yesterday also, that we need to be honest with ourselves. When we ask the question, are you the architect of your future? Or are you allowing the future to happen to you? Are you actually driving the plan that you have for your life, the ideas, the purpose that you see for yourself? Are you driving that, or are you allowing that to happen to you? I really sincerely feel that if we work through these questions and we look at ourselves and we say, guys, a lot of these things I'm just letting go by. It is like, water flowing and stuff happening to us. But we need to take control of our lives. We need to be in control. We need to understand who we are, where we're going to, and why we're going there. And if we have that sewn up and identified and clearly defined in our lives, then it's easy to prepare for the future. It's easy to prepare yourself spiritually, emotionally, and physically for any eventuality. So the last question that I asked is, are you ready for anything? And I think that should be our point of departure this morning, is asking ourselves, am I ready for anything that happens tomorrow? Pandemic happened. We had no time to prepare for it. And it caught many of us way off guard. I mean, if we look around us, the actual unemployment figures came out yesterday. We're hitting the 7 million mark as far as unemployed people are concerned. Guys, it's getting out of hand. People are taking their own lives out of desperation because they don't know how to tackle the future. So let's look at a few practical things. I'm asking the question, why should we be future-proof? There's a lot of challenges that is awaiting us, and it's those challenges that we don't know what they would be. We can guess. We look at the signs of the times around us, and we can guess that we will have an energy crisis. We can guess that we will have a food crisis. We can guess that we're heading for serious water problems, fuel problems. There's all sorts of things that is happening in our life around us, and if we look at those signs, those indications, then we can more or less know what waits for us in the future and be prepared for that. First of all, what I'm going through today, or firstly this morning, is to have the right mindset, to know how to tackle these things. And the right mindset, on my next screen, you cannot even begin to future-proof yourself if you haven't dealt with the wounds of the past. Many of us, and I see that every day, tackle new things in life, and then they sit with old wounds in their life, stuff that has happened to them emotionally, physically, and in all sorts of ways. And they're not prepared to tackle or they're not competent to tackle the future because of that brokenness. It's very important that if you feel that you are not emotionally whole, to seek help, to get somebody to help you with it. If you cannot deal with it on your own. Many of us can, but not all of us can. And I would actually advise you to rather sit with somebody else, open your heart to them, and let them go on this journey with you. It is often not necessary to actually, or the other person would often not even do anything but listen. And I think that is how healing starts. So it's important for us to get the old wounds healed. The first characteristic in terms of the age, you'll see my screen is split in two. On the right-hand side, I've got just the side question that I ask for, statements that I make in terms of being future-proof. The characteristics that I want to deal with is on the left-hand side, the bigger portion of the screen, is to worship speed. Now, this may sound a little contradictory when you talk about being a Christian, and now all of a sudden you're talking about worshiping speed. I'm saying that because I want to emphasize the fact that time is absolutely critical in how we manage it, how we utilize it. Even the Bible teaches us to buy the time out, koop die tyd uit, because It is important. We cannot just let time go by because I'm not feeling like doing whatever we need to do today. In doing what we do, we need to be decisive so that we don't waste time. We need to set goals quickly and be willing to change our goals. Many of us, especially the older guys like myself, damn man, I don't change goals that easily. Sometimes I can see that I'm going in the wrong direction, but because I've got this conviction right from the start that the direction that I took is the right thing to do, I don't change direction because I believe that I'm still going there. But over the years, I learned, you know what, sometimes you just have to take a step back and analyze where it is that you're going to. Is it still on course? Is it still aligned with the purpose that you've set yourself? And understand, obviously, the cost of your decisions. Now, Jeff Bezos said something very important. He said, if you are good at changing course or correcting your course, being wrong may be less costly than you think, whereas being slow may be more expensive. And I think many of us has learned that lesson. Sometimes you procrastinate in things, and that procrastination actually cost you a deal or an entire contract, for that matter, a huge opportunity, and it's just gone by, and then we sit with regret at the end of the day. So let's buy time out. Let's make sure that we use our time effectively. The second characteristic that I want to talk about is to be relentless in the pursuit of emerging strategies. Now, emerging strategies, we've got two things in our life. We've got fixed strategies and we've got emerging strategies. Now, emerging strategies are those things that are going to tell you, dude, it's time to change course. It's time to change the direction that you've taken in. It's time to change the processes that you've set for yourself or whatever it may be, but it's time for change. We need to question the value of our offering continuously to see if there's anything emerging that we need to address. We need to develop emerging strategies to maintain innovative, competitive value. And we need to execute multiple strategies without delay. Now, in the time that we live in now, it's become more important. We will have strategies for many things in our lives. And we need to deal with all of those as if they are equally important, because they are. Those strategies together will form the actual worth that you bring to the table every single day. The stuff that we normally do to give us a sense of purposeful direction is commonly referred to as deliberate strategies. That's the fixed stuff that we do. Emergent strategies, on the other hand, implies that we are learning what works in practice, and then we adapt to strategies, new strategies accordingly. And that's important. And especially when it comes to making mistakes in life. We all talk about, you know, it's failure and mistakes and all these things, and that it's good to have them because it helps you grow and all those things. But then many of us battle to deal with failure. We see failure so negatively in our lives. But in being future-proof, you actually take that failure and you use it for your benefit, because that tells you now it's time to change. It tells you that there's things that you've been doing which doesn't work. So we need to look for a new emerging strategy to address in a more meaningful manner the things that we have set ourselves to do. On the right-hand side, I talk a little about resilience. Resilience is being future-proof. We cannot leave it out of our stuff. And I've seen so many people that fail when it comes to being resilient. They hit the ground hard and then they stay on the ground. Guys, we need to be like a rubber ball, man. If you hit the ground, doesn't matter what, emotionally, whatever, nobody else is going to pick you out of that hole if you're not willing to get out of it. The hole may be a little big sometimes, it may be deeper than what we think, so we may need help from the outside, but at least put your hand out and say, dude, I need help. And in that way, saying or admitting that you need help, that's part of being resilient. It's not saying that you failed in any way. So we need to understand that being resilient, and I will leave you to read that at your own leisure when time gets to it. The third characteristic is decisiveness. I've seen so many people go into businesses not knowing what they're going to do next, and not being able to actually decide on the next step. I'd rather make a mistake when I do that, because I'm a spontaneous person by nature. I do things on the fly. But I've also learned that in those things that I do on the fly, I've had more successes than what I've had failures. And I want to encourage you to be decisive in what you do, even if you feel that there's a little doubt in your mind that whatever step it is that you're going to take is actually going to work. Rather do it and get something done, and then deal with the fallout. It's like lots of people always say, you do it now and you apologize later. Now, I'm not saying that we need to be stupid in this, because there's no ointment for stupidity or pills, whatever you want to call it. So let's not be stupid, but let's be decisive in whatever decisions that we take. Know where you come from, know where you are right now, and know where you are heading, even if you have to change direction. Be cognizant, but never fear external influences. Remain focused on your vision, because that is where that will guide you in your decisions that will shape your future. Vision is extremely important to help you make the right decisions in your life. And vision is tied to your purpose or the purpose of your business, the purpose of the organization that you serve. Doesn't matter where you find yourself. If that vision is not tied to an exact purpose or a clearly defined purpose, my friend, then you're missing the boat. Secondly, your vision also needs to take the future in consideration. You need to see the future to actually have a good vision. Otherwise, it's just a thing that you put on paper and it's worth nothing. Be decisive. Don't waste time and overthink your options. Some of us do that. I think mainly because we're afraid of what the future may hold, or we're afraid of the direction in which the decision that we're making may take us. But rather make that decision and adjust whatever comes to you after that. Take it, because you're not on your own. And that is also something that you need to understand. You're not on your own. If you are future-proof, then you will make sure that you stand within relationships that will actually carry you through those things. So be decisive, don't overthink, follow your heart. The fourth characteristic is to have a responsive structure in which you actually operate. And a responsive structure, I'm not meaning a rigid thing that is telling you, like corporate environments and those things. Corporate environments plays an important role in the bigger picture of where we find ourselves in society today. But what's important is the structure that you find yourself in is the network of relationships that you have attached yourself to. Now, those relationships can either be conducive to what you want to do, or it can be destructive to what you want to do, or not detractive, but destructive. Sorry, I'll get there eventually. Okay, I'm talking about the relationships. Know that the structure that you find yourself and the relationships in which you find yourself is actually conducive to that. And those are decisions that we need to make. Some of it emotionally, some of it we follow our heart. But guys, we also need to know that how we respond to those relationships is important. I always say that we go into relationships not because of what we can get out of the relationship, but what we put into the relationship. And if we go into relationships with that approach, then none of our relationships will actually fail. Relationships only fail because we put an expectancy in that relationship, or we expect things to come from the relationship that is not realistic. So if we change our approach to these things, then relationships can actually work with us or work for us. Characteristic number 5. I say on the side here, future-proof people takes intelligent decision-making to the next level. And that's important. That's just what I said about being decisive. Having a healthy culture. Now, culture has become a buzzword in the business world over the past 3 or 4 years, maybe a little longer. And you'll find that many people say that culture trumps talent and all those things, and that's very true. You can teach people new talents, you can help them develop new skills, but it's very difficult to change their heart. It's difficult to change them. I've been watching a movie, actually a series on Netflix the past couple of days, and one of the main things that has come from that is that people don't change. And I also thought, you know what, it's true in many ways, but it's also not true. And I think we need to give one another room, understanding that from a human perspective, people don't change. That's the human condition. But with enough influence and with enough encouragement, people can change. We must just make sure that when we focus on helping them to change, that we're not trying to fix them. Because we're not called to fix one another. We cannot do that. Fixing one another is not what we need to do. But we need to be there for one another, to encourage one another to change. And it's part of what we are doing right now. So we're not trying to, I'm not trying to fix you. I'm not trying to put you into a direction. I want to sow seeds today that will encourage you to actually understand that change is required in terms of how I see things, how I approach things, how I think. Do I have a growth mindset? Do I have a future-proof mindset? Or do I have a fixed mindset that works according to certain rules? And if things don't comply to those rules, then stuff starts to fall apart. Our culture needs to be responsive, resilient, positive, friendly. It needs to be encouraging. It needs to be mindful, and it needs to be productive. If you don't find those things in the relationships that you're in, then it means that you're actually nurturing the wrong cultures. Get yourself surrounded with people that can actually, that have the culture, the mindset that can actually encourage you and help you and support you in many ways. Support your purpose, because that's important. A healthy culture promotes wellness, happiness, productivity, prosperity, values, standards, and above all, strength, because it embraces diversity. Okay, I see we're running out of time now. Agile leadership. We're all leaders, whether we want to know that or not. Somewhere along the line, you have a sphere of influence, and that puts you into a leadership position. And it's important to make sure that our leadership is formed in such a way that it actually, the influence that we exert on others is a positive influence. That it encourages innovation. Innovation that is proactive. Because if it's reactive, then it means that we're reacting to a problem that's already there. Being future-proof means that you react to problems that you can see that is coming. And that's always the best way and the cheapest way to actually deal with problems or things that you need solutions for. Creating a growth-orientated ecosystem. Guys, we're not islands. We don't exist in silos. And unfortunately, society has forced us to move into such a disconnected a lifestyle of disconnectedness that we're no longer interacting with one another in a productive way, in a way that we can actually help one another be better at who they are. And that's important, that we find ourselves in ecosystems, in systems that actually allow us to be more than what we are. We've dealt with a situation this morning where we discussed a very personal situation where people are dealing with a sickness in their family. The person that is actually sick lives within a village that is very caring, that is very supporting in many ways. But unfortunately, the close family has decided to isolate the person. So he's no longer part of the family that he's been living with for 30 years or longer, actually, who can actually be a very good support system to him. That ecosystem has been taken away from him. And I understand why they do that, because they feel that they need to protect his dignity. But are you protecting his dignity or your pride? I mean, when we get sick at an old age in our life, and when our health is failing, we land in situations where dignity goes out the door at some time, because the stuff that happens to us is embarrassing, to say the least. But that is when we need to know that we have an environment, relationships with people that we can actually trust when it comes to me losing my dignity because of sickness or whatever. Accountability, guys. I think that is something that has gone lost in our South African society at large. There's just, our leadership is just not accountable for what they do anymore. In fact, the more they get away with things, the more they do things that is actually very destructive to us as a nation. But there's a reason for that. Once you start to take ownership of things, then accountability goes out the door, because you become the boss. And we've not created, we're not designed to be owners. We're designed to be good stewards. When God put Adam in the Garden of Eden, he put him there with authority to be a good steward of all of creation. Adam named all the animals, he named the plants and everything, which in its own is a miracle, because just imagine how many things had to be named. And he took care of everything by the authority that he had. He didn't take ownership of it. At the time when they did take ownership of things, that's when things started to go wrong. And I think we need to understand that in leadership, you're not the owner of the people that follows you. That's where things in many things, even in our churches today, you can see when spiritual leaders become so bossy or so taken up by what they own, that they actually lose the entire mission of being a church. Leadership is earned, it's not imposed. Agile leadership, know that the people are not perfect and therefore liable to make mistakes, but they accept accountability and they learn from their mistakes. Let's go over to the next one. Simplicity. I think I'm running out of time quicker than what I was hoping for. Simplicity, team-driven, shared responsibilities, all for one for all. It need not be a complicated thing to be simplistic to work simplistic in teams. Outsourcing takes the complexity out of production. No bells and whistles. People put stuff into their operations that they never use, but it's there. It just clutters all sorts of things. Stick to the rules. Rules are there to protect. It's not there to limit or to crunch your style. It's there to actually protect you, and understand the purpose of the rule. There's times in which we need to break the rule. But if you break the rule, then you need to understand the purpose of the rule in the first place, so that you don't go outside those borders. A rule sometimes limits you more than what it should, maybe, but if you need to break it in order to get stuff done in a positive manner, then make sure that you understand the purpose of the rule. Because coming back to that purpose, that's where your protection actually lies. Ensure that you do not expend time on anything but the pursuance of purpose. If you do stuff that has no purpose, it's totally meaningless. And that's when you get lost in things, in the nuts and bolts of things, and that is when stuff becomes overwhelming and you lose sight of what it is that you actually do. Number 8, foundational alignment. Guys, this is very important. There's common principles, proven principles in life that we need to buy to. It's not stuff that is there. It's not stuff that is there to limit us, as I said, with the rules on the other side. It is there to guide us into being more effective, into being more impactful in the life that we live. We need to define, to have defined rules of engagement. This is why the rules that we have on our WhatsApp groups, all the other things that we put into place, it's not there to make life difficult. It's not there to cramp your style, as I said earlier. It is there to make whatever we do more impactful and much more effective. We need to collaborate to create value. If what we do doesn't add value, then it means that it's totally unnecessary to do. We need to have social connection, as I mentioned earlier too. Those relationships that we stand in, those relationships need to help us to become future-proof, or to be future-proof. We need to play an important role as far as future-proofing is concerned within those relationships, but we also need to structure our relationships in such a way that it supports our, not our ambition, but our strive to be future-proof. And then again, just a thing on ownership and stewardship. Stewardship is the way to go, guys. I always say that, you know, God has given us so much in life, but if we take ownership, and this is why when the disciples and the Pharisees came to Jesus and they asked him about the taxes, he asked them for a coin. When they gave him a coin, he asked them whose head is on the coin, and they said it's the head of Caesar. He turned around and he said, give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. If you have put your stamp of ownership on stuff, then you carry the accountability and the responsibility that goes with that stuff. But if you become a steward of that, then God carries the ownership and responsibility of that. And that sets you free to do things that goes beyond what you are capable to do, should you be the owner of those things. I hope that you understand that, because it's very important that we do. Further align urgency with agility and capability with identity, and create a resilience that will last. On those questions, I think just very briefly, I think where a lot of us miss is we try to get to the things that we need to do in terms to be future-proof, and I'm talking about practical stuff, like having a water tank at your house to make sure that you have enough water when the water goes down, or changing to solar in terms of energy crisis, or planting your own food. And that is extremely important steps that we need to take in terms of our own survival when the future strikes. But that's not where future-proofing starts. Future-proofing starts with you being prepared for the future, being ready for any eventuality. And this is why I believe that the questions that I have on this is important questions. Let me just share my screen again. There you go. Those questions are important because we often lose sight of our role in our own future, because we've become so brainwashed, almost so wired by society that the future will happen regardless. And I don't think it has to be that way. It can happen, and there's things that will happen that we will have absolutely no control over. But at least we can position ourselves in such a way, spiritually, emotionally, and physically, that we will be ready for whatever happens. And it's like when I talk about being the architecture of your future. It's like planning a building or a house that you want to live in. When I do that, and I've been involved with such plans for many years, where we built high-end houses for people that has a plan for the house. They actually want to live a certain lifestyle and have certain things at their disposal, and those things must serve them in a certain way. So I spend time with my clients when I do those things, when I do design interviews with them. I spend a lot of time with them to make sure that I understand what it is that they want from their house. How should their house serve them? Because you build these things at great expense, millions gets invested in it. At least you want that thing to serve you for many years to come. Now, that's the same thing with our future. Jasper at one stage from Geek, he at one stage said to me, Steve, I've got a 20-year plan for my life, and I'm in the process of extending that to 100 years because that's part of my legacy. And I thought, you know what? There's so many things that can impact that plan. How do you make a plan for that? But I understand that it's the plan that actually gives you structure within which you can plan your future, like you would plan that house. If you go and build yourself a 10 or a 20 million rand house, then you spend a lot of time in making sure that as I said, the house serves you. Why not spend that with your future, planning your future, making sure that this plan that you have for your future will actually stand up to the challenges that the future holds for us. And I'm not sure why we don't do that. Sometimes we're of the mindset, as I said earlier, that things will happen that I have no control over. But I think at times it is just because we don't want to look at whatever negative challenges the future may hold. And I understand that, because if you look at these things, they become overwhelming. They become so challenging, so daunting, that you may put your head in a hole and hide forever if it comes to that. But that's what we shouldn't do. We shouldn't be afraid of the future. We shouldn't be afraid. If we say that we are going to have an energy crisis coming soon, we're going to have a food crisis coming soon, there's fuel things that's going to impact on our economy. And if electricity goes down or becomes unaffordable, how will our economy survive that? And if our economy is not going to survive, how will I survive? Those are the practical things that we need to build into our plan for the future. And I'm not saying that we should do it in detail, because there's no ways that you can do it in detail. But you need to know that if this is going to happen, then that's the strategy, not the plan, the strategy that I'm going to follow. And start to build whatever resources, whatever it is that you need to actually follow that strategy through. Start to build it into your life now. Multiple streams of income. It's become very important. I don't like most of these things that is out there in the market at the moment, because I believe that it's all built on hype. I believe we should get back to things that is tangible, stuff that God created, because He's still the owner of those things. He takes the accountability and responsibility to make those things work for us. If we take ownership of things like many of the other stuff that is happening around us, then what's going to happen if it falls away, if it goes away? Who's going to take responsibility for that? Nobody. I would rather put my life in the hands of God, my future in the hands of God, and know that whatever it is that I plan is planned with what He owns and what belongs to Him and what He's given to me, not just as a blessing, but to be a good steward of. How do you feel about failing? That's, I think, one of the biggest things that trips us over when it comes to being future-proof. I've gone through a number of failings in my life. I've never seen them as failings. My family did, and I'm not talking about my close family, I'm talking about my family. My friends did, I've gone through a number of sequestrations, companies that folded, and all sorts of things, because we had in 81, 82, we had a recession. We had another one in 2006 to building up 2008. It actually hit us very hard. And there were things that we were not just, we knew it was coming, but we couldn't prepare for it. But I was prepared. I pulled out of certain things in time, not the first time, but the second time. I learned from the first time. In the first time, I lost everything. My house, my cars, everything was gone. I didn't know how to recover from that. And I thought I would be okay because I had a stash on the side. Just to find out a week later that that stash has actually been picked up, and it was also become part of the whole debacle at that stage. So I really lost everything. But being emotionally strong at that time pulled me and my family and everybody through this, whatever we were going through at that time, and we recovered fairly quickly. And I learned from that. So when failures came after that, I was always ready for it. There was always something else that I could go into, because I didn't take failure personally. I just took it as an event in my life, and I planned, if that event doesn't work out, how to deal with that. I had the right structures in terms of relationships around me, the right people to take us, to help us through things. You know, you can become a village in a global world with your own friends. They need not, with technology today, they need not live on your doorstep to be part of your village. And if you know what I mean by village, I mean that close knit living that we experienced many years ago when we used to live in little neighborhoods where everybody knew everybody and everybody cared for everybody. Even though they gossiped about you, they still cared. They were still part of your support system. So I think for us, very briefly now, maybe we should just have a few minutes chat about how you see yourself being future-proof. What does your situation look at the moment? If you feel that you want to be honest with us and share some of your personal experiences, I'd love that. I think you can, as you do this, please put up your hand and let us switch on your video, and let's take it from there. Anyone that wants to take that, let me just stop sharing my screen first. Yeah. Okay, there we go. We're back. Anyone that wants to venture into talking to us? Questions that I can answer, maybe.
Steve, I wrote a question down here, and I know this word has been resonant. I know Mark handled it in a previous one. But why do we even think of failure if we have faith? You know, that's my philosophy of life. I don't have any fear. I told you, I don't even fear death. I don't even think of failure, because I believe that my heart and my vision, and I've sent you something in a little WhatsApp a few minutes ago about purpose and vision and mission and the differences between them.
Yeah.
So I'm asking the question, you know, why are we even mentioning the word failure or fear in this context?
George, I think it is because we live in a world that has made failure an issue. It's not because we see failure as an issue. As I said, failure to me is just an event. It's something that happened. If you walk or if you run and you trip over a stone, it doesn't mean that life ends there. It means that you need to get up and start running again. That's what failure is to me. It's an event. It's not something that I take to be destructive in a way that it ends a lot of things for me in my life. It causes me to change direction, maybe. It causes me to implement other strategies, but I don't take it in a negative way. And I think that's part of the message that we need to get out there. Failure is not what the world makes of it. I think the term, we associate the term failure with the definition that the world has placed on it. And that shouldn't be. As you say, if we have faith, then failure is just another event. It's like getting up and having breakfast in the morning. It's stuff that happens in life. It is like starting off with a nice sunny day, and all of a sudden there's a shower of rain. There's things that happens that you can't. And the reason why there's failure is because other people causes things to happen in our lives over which we have no control. Sometimes let's take a business. We start a business. The business is going well. And this happened in many instances. I had a close relationship with a bank. We were representing them in certain things. In South Africa, it was an international bank. And all of a sudden, the bank landed into hassles, and their license were taken away, and we had to close operations. We had a lot of things folding on us at that time, which was perceived by other people to be a failure, but we didn't fail. Things just ended for us, and we learned from that. We learned that you cannot put all your eggs in one basket. You need to diverse. You need to make sure that there's stuff that you can continue with, to create that continuity in your life, to make sure that failure that you've experienced is just an event and nothing more than that. I see Mark has made a response to say that we learn from failures, and we do. And that's part of being agile. It is part of being future-proof. If things around us fail because of certain events, the economy that's collapsing, the economy is going to cause a lot of businesses to fail. But that need not mean that the person that owns the business or the persons that they fail. It just means that it's an event that they need to deal with in life and learn from that. Thanks. I see Lisa's got her hand up, and then Lucky wanted to say something too. Lisa, you can go first, and then we'll give Lucky an opportunity.
Okay, I think for me, the multiple streams is very essential right now, just because with my tutoring and things, it's kind of ebbs and flows, because some of the kids have had to a point where they can actually go off on their own. So I'm really needing to push getting my books out. And so I've looked everywhere. I've looked on connections here, and I just feel like I'm floundering. Like, I don't know if I must go with self-publishing or traditional, because I've got a children's book that I've written about Zulu folk tales, and I just wrote it myself. Like, I don't even know of Zulu folktale. It's a combo of some biblical mythology stuff. And I've even got an artist in America who's willing to do the graphics for me. So a children's book you can actually put together really fast and get out there. But I just feel like, so part of my procrastination, that's when you were speaking and really hit a core with me. Part of my procrastination is fear of doing it wrong and not being able to be successful at it.
You see, that fear of failure, and I believe that is what we need to deal with. As George said, we should not fear failure. So if you get it wrong, so what? Then at least you learn from that, and you correct your mistakes. You change your direction, and that is part of the message that we need to get out there. Is to be future-proof is to be agile, to be able to change direction, to change your strategy. Thanks, Lucky. And then Mark.
Yeah, okay. No, thanks. Actually, this is, like I said, you exposed me, because as you were doing your presentation, and then I realized my failures here and there. I was involved in multi-streaming business, getting some income from multiple sources. And in the process, I think I lost the focus. Because I see here you spoke about, your vision and your purpose, that they must be aligned at all times. And, I sort of lost my plot there. And whereby now, when I think of multiple income businesses, I think twice about it. I don't know how to balance it, because in the present times we need more than one income. How do you advise me on that?
Lucky, I think that's a difficult one. It's to do it as a general thing, or to give you advice generally on that is difficult because your circumstances differ vastly from mine and from anybody else's. I think it is there where you need to sit with somebody that is highly experienced in creating multiple income streams. And there are people out there. Not everything they do is necessarily what we want to do, but the principles that they follow and the methodologies that they employ, those are the important things. And I think Jasper and them is a good example of that. They've got multiple income streams. The whole gig platform offers you multiple income streams. I'm not totally ecstatic about all of it, but I think it's stuff that we can look at and say, guys, how do we do this on a personal basis? How do I take that and make it my own so that it fits into my purpose? Because your purpose differs from mine. So your plan will differ from my plan. And I think that might be one of the things that we need to do shortly from now, following up on this, is that we would get things to, or get people to come and talk to us about multiple income streams. Thanks, Mark.
And also how to manage that, you know.
Yeah, managing it is easy. It's like managing 2 or 3 projects that you're busy with. So managing it is easy. You need to just, when you plan it from the start, you need to know that certain income streams is going to require time at certain times of your day. So that is important. So there's stuff that you can do at night that you cannot do at day. There's stuff that you need to do in the day that you cannot do at night. So you need to see those things when you get involved in those multiple income stream businesses, so that it doesn't tip you over when it comes to meeting your obligations.
Okay. But yeah, no, great presentation.
Yes,
if I can comment, Steve, there on a sort of link. I think that it's interesting, Steve, you said, yeah, to manage it's easy. And I think that highlights the reason for why we as a team of Huge need each other as part of future proofing, because managing multiple projects is a skill on its own. And one of my challenges is that I'm being inundated. So whilst Lucky's saying he needs to look at other alternative opportunities, maybe for income generation, I see those income opportunities in many, many areas, and they're coming at me at high speed at the moment. But the truth is, you have to be able to sift through the ones that can genuinely make a return on the time and effort it takes to engage. And when you say it's easy, my method of that is to understand what is in my risk category. So what is me taking risk? What is me aligned to my business interests? And then what is aligned to my future proofing, my seeing the future? And I just try and manage those 3 things. So by example, yesterday, I had a full agenda. I had lots to do. And out of nowhere comes an opportunity to do with introducing electric cars to a particular niche of market in South Africa. And it's a really challenging thing for me because I see the opportunity, I understand the opportunity, I know the context, but my agenda is full, my time is full. And then out of nowhere comes a 2-hour conversation and a number of meetings, which are amazing. But the challenge I have is to work out how to manage my own time. Now, that's why I need people in Huge, is because if there are opportunities and we can share those, there are ways we can leverage our ability to be involved in projects. And that's something I believe in. And by this example then of future proofing, the reason this guy called yesterday is he runs a business in Namibia, and he's got a future proof mindset. So he is seeing that his business, he doesn't think because of COVID will return to normal for 3 years. So whilst everybody else is getting excited about level 2s and the change, he is realizing that his business will not return to normal for 3 years because most of his business comes from Germany and the UK. And any time they hear negative news about South Africa, and now we're all talking about a second wave. So remember, South Africa entered this thing late in the game.
Yeah.
The UK, Europe, and that were already 3 to 4 months ahead. So this guy has found to say, look, he's making a plan to pivot. And that's an important word here in future proofing. You could have a plan, like Steve explained that Jasper had a 20-year plan. But if you fix that plan in concrete and the world changes and the world moves forward, you're going to stay where you were. So to pivot is to understand that you have a future and that you see a future and that you have a plan of what you want to do with a mission and purpose. And if you can identify that mission and purpose, like George does with understanding his project to do with waste will feed the poor, then he can pivot when he sees an opportunity present itself. And that's what I did yesterday. I was able to take this opportunity with a business that landed on my plate from Namibia, direct it to a partner in the UK, speak to the local people. And then I said, if you need my help further, I can act for you, but this is what it's going to cost. And then I have to curtail my involvement to say, Mark, it's an amazing opportunity, but remember, it wasn't your mission and purpose. This is about you helping somebody, help them on their mission and purpose. And if the guy wants to pay me to do it, that's great, because then I can turn around to somebody in Huge and say, guys, there's a contract here. Can you get on with it? But what I loved about this guy is he's working 3 years ahead. And instead of waiting for 3 years to return to normal, he's creating a new normal. And he's worked out a plan to reach his existing German guys. And he's only interested in trying to secure 3% of his existing database because he knows that the other 90% are not going to come back for 3 years. But he's worked out a way to address the 3% whilst they're living in Germany. And another example of this is, would you believe it, that because people can't fly to South Africa and South Africa's tourism industry is still in a mess, there is a safari operation in Holland where there are people going to see rhinos and do a safari tour in Holland. Holland of all places. Can you imagine these rhinos walking around in tulips with windmills behind them on flat pastures? But Europe is adapting itself to have experiences. So this guy and another project I'm working is linking to bring South African stories and South African safari operations into this project where European tourists are visiting. So look, Lucky, I think there's lots of opportunity, but it's important to screen the ones that have clear relationship to your mission and your purpose, but also to ensure you understand how it's going to lead towards sustainable money or income. Because if that's part of your objective, it's too risky to get involved in filling your entire time with projects that are all risk. I think that's a very important part. You know, if you don't know where you're going, any path will get you there, and that's a saying that I really believe in. So future proofing is about knowing and listening and asking the questions. What does your future hold, and what do you align with? And so you begin to hone in and focus on the opportunities that support that, and then pivot to adapt your situation.
Great, thanks, Mark. Anybody else that wants to talk to us a little about this? Nobody else? Okay, then I think that brings us to the end of this. Yes, Mark, you?
No, I'm good.
Okay, great. Well, that's the end for us then for today. Thank you, guys. This was a great chat, and I think the contributions from everybody else, even in our chat group, the chat box there, was good. And if this indicates the way that you're just growing, then I'm happy. Lekker dag vir julle.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks very much.
Thanks, George.
Enjoy, guys. Well done.
Thanks, Steve. It was awesome.
Looking forward to the future.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Blessings, guys.
It's what we make of it.
Lisa? Lisa?